Troops began to arrive around the 1st of April. By then, most of the camp was constructed, and they began to receive all these draftees and the new enlistees to start to be trained. And training goes on in earnest, as I said before, until Armistice Day, when they shut everything down because the war at that point was over. At the time, for most of the time, at any one day, there were about 23,000 soldiers on Camp Humphreys during that time. And then, of course, in August and early September of 1918, the pandemic flu epidemic arrives, the one that hit Europe and the Americas and killed millions of people in America and in Europe. At that time, the base hospital, for about the 5-week period during the flu epidemic here at Camp Humphreys, there were about 6,000 patients treated at the base hospital, of which about 4,300 of them were flu patients. And of course, you didn't die from the flu, you died from one of the complications, whether it was pneumonia or meningitis or tuberculosis or something like that. It killed 35% of those soldiers here at Fort Belvoir during the time of the epidemic. As I said before, the post stopped or suspended all the training on Armistice Day when the war ended. They began to turn in the equipment. They then turned the post into a big demobilization station. All the troops coming back from France were sent to Fort Belvoir, or Camp Humphreys, and it became a demobilization station. They were discharged from service and then went their way back to their home districts. Of course, the camp didn't close down. It remained an Army installation. The engineer school was transferred officially to Camp Humphreys in 1919. And then in 1922, the name changed to Fort Humphreys, a measure of the fact that it became a permanent installation within the Army inventory. And then, of course, the name changes again in 1935 to Fort Belvoir, changed by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was persuaded by the man who renovated Gunston Hall that in order to reestablish the links to the colonial past, the name should be changed to Fort Belvoir, and of course it's retained that name up until the present time. Lewis Hurdle, the man who renovated Gunston Hall.
And was there a Mr. or Colonel Belvoir?
No. Belvoir is a French word which means beautiful to see. And that word was adopted by Colonel William Fairfax when he took over the land on which his plantation stood. He was so impressed with the beauty of the property, the land, that he called it Belvoir, beautiful to see. And that's where the name comes from. Yes, ma'am?
What was the hospital called when it was Camp Humphreys?
It was actually called the Base Hospital.
So it didn't have DeWitt?
It didn't have DeWitt. No, the name DeWitt only goes back to 1957.
Will it continue with the name DeWitt with a new hospital?
I don't know that. And they haven't made that decision yet. Yes, ma'am?
You said beautiful to see, that's S-E-E or S-E-A?
S-E-E. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much for your attention.